Sewing Works, and today I want to talk to you about scrappy binding. It's one of my favorite techniques to do, especially on a small little project like this that might lend well to having some of the fabrics that you used in the project be sprinkled around the outside as the binding. Instead of having another solid color that might distract from what you're looking at in the middle, I really like to finish stuff this way. It does take a little bit more prep work to get all your strips cut and sewn together, but I think the effect is worth it for the right project. So today we're going to be binding my little patriotic table runner here that you may have seen me working on in the past. And I have a rule for my scrappy binding that I do not cut chunks of scrap any smaller than 8 inches. And trust me, 8 inches is small enough. You might want to make your rule 10 inches. The reason why is you see that these strips only end up being about 6 inches wide once you sew them on the bias to join them. And that can cause you to have your binding joint hit one of your corners quite easily. If you have them even tighter together, you're more likely to run into an issue. So please don't go smaller than 8 inches. You'll really regret it if you do. So I just take the fun fabrics that we used in the project and we whack them up into 8-inch. I do 1.5-inch strips because I use my binding tool, which you'll see at the end of this video. But if you like to use 2.5 strips or even 2.25-inch strips for your traditional binding methods, please use that width that you're used to for your method, but go ahead and cut them 8-inch chunks or maybe even bigger. Next, I'm going to show you how to join them together. And we're going to get a strip plenty long enough. This is what it's going to look like. So let's go to the sewing machine. Once you have your 8-inch or larger strips cut, you're going to want to take them over to your sewing machine, lay them right sides together, perpendicular to one another. If I'm doing traditional binding strips, I'll usually do a little bit of a push pass, so I have a real definite inside corner to inside corner where I'm going to sew across. In this case, because they're already so small, I am going to go flush on the edges and just sew very carefully. Some people like to mark this with a marking tool to keep them sewing straight, and some people even will pin the two together. I'm not going to do that because there's a lot of little strips, and I have my laser light for my line. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I've got maybe if I turn the machine lights down. Oh, settings. Sewing settings. Oh, no. It's right here on the front somewhere. Machine lights. Let me turn these down some. Let's turn them off. Now you can see my laser light. It's so nice and bright in here, it's kind of hard to see. Okay. So I'm just sewing right across. Then without cutting, I flip the next one over, and I'm very methodical about how the first strip always comes face up, laying with the tail that way, and the next strip comes face down, coming towards me, and then I sew from that first corner out. If you have your hover tool engaged, oops. I had a little flip on me. And now I seem to have, let's go needle up, presser foot up, get that corrected. Okay. Okay, and on you would go. But I want to show you the trimming and pressing step next. So let's go to the ironing board. I've brought my strips over to the pressing mat here, cutting ironing station. I'm going to snip apart the seams where I was joining, and then I eyeball that for 1/4 inch seam allowance. Trim all of my extra seam allowance, and then I'm going to use best press and a fairly pointed iron First I gotta get my fingers in here. And you are gonna wanna press these seams open. So I go ahead and press all of them with a nice shot of best press. And there are a lot when you make scrappy binding. Now, for the method that I use, and for most people, you're also gonna wanna take a nice little spritz of best press down the whole strip and make sure it's nice and flat and crisp before you attach it. Once you've created enough binding to go all the way around the edge of your project, I like to first kind of map out where I want to start by trying to avoid a seam hitting my first corner. And in this case, since it's so small, I might be able to avoid my first and second corner. If I kind of aim for that middle, that's going to mean I'll start with my strip somewhere right here at the end of this white section. As promised, I like to use my binder attachment, so that's the way I'm going to put it on. But obviously use your preferred method and whatever you cut your binding strips for to attach your binding. have it, that's how you do a scrappy binding. And if you would like to see more about how I use the binder tool, follow my channel and there's more videos on the binder attachment number 88 as well. I hope you enjoy burning up those scraps and making some cute bindings. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.